morning, welcome to the Boekemans Machinery service and training tutorials for the 2020 season. Today we'll be going through an 8250 from Case IH axle flow. We have with us a Macdon D140, and we'll also be looking at a C Terminator. We're going to do each tutorial separately, and we're going to go through specific bits of the machine for daily processes, preventative maintenance, and the sort of checks that an operator can do during the course of the day for benefits of safety, fire prevention, duration of the machine, better uptime, and of course increased productivity and profitability from your axle flow. Okay, we're going to start this morning with the Case IH 8250's fluid systems. You can note from where we've got the feeder house positioned that the feeder house is in the down position. When you're going to do your early morning checks, the feeder must be on the ground. The main reason the feeder's got to be on the ground is because lots of the fluid systems go for a level measurement. Okay, we're going to go through them starting from the feeder house and working back. Okay, as I come into the feeder house, at the bottom here we've got our high capacity PDO drive. On the bottom of the high capacity PDO drive, under here there's a sight gauge. That sight gauge needs to be monitored every morning. You just got to see the oil in it. All right. The same is true at the top of the feeder house. In the top of the feeder house, there's the top sprocket drive. You can even see on the top sprocket drive, there's a request sticker. The decal requests that you have the feeder house on a flat level position. Both of these sight gauges will only be 100% accurate if you're running the feeder house in the down position. If you're running the feeder house in the down position, you will also find that the hydraulic tank is actually at the level, because when the feeder house is retracted in the lower position, the main lift rams, which hold a considerable amount of oil, are not extended, and when not extended, don't have all the oil from the hydraulic system lifting them up. Okay, so there is a release spot. You can get to the yoke, and on the very underside here is our sight gauge. When I come to do my daily walk rounds for the combine, this is a good location to start. One, just here. Okay, then whilst you're under here, you've actually got a great line of sight in here to the final drives. You can actually inspect the final drive on the far side and on the near side from this crouched position. All right, it's a good way to get lots of things done in one move. Bottom feeder drive, top feeder drive, bottom top sprocket, then bottom final drive and near side final drive. All right, whilst you're in here, it obviously pays to keep an eye on a few of the componentry. We'll come back to some of the other visual checks, but remember, it's not what you expect, it's what you inspect. And the more visual you are with the machine, the more likely you are to catch problems. You don't know what wrong looks like until you've looked at right daily. So daily checks, look at all the things, see it, and if it's right every day, on the first day it's wrong, or the first time you glance at it, it won't look the same, and you'll pick it up quickly, saving yourself time and money. Service points around the back of your FPT engine. Engine oil, green dipstick, right in the eye line, easy to reach. The rotor gearbox at the front right here, and your PTO box back left. Both of them I like to double dip. I think you get a true sense, and some of these chambers cause vacuums. Make sure you double dip them. The alternator in here, a great place for keeping clean. Keep the air off, keep the dirt off the alternator when you clean it. Check the muffler on a daily basis. Look, watch the connectors on it. Over the top of the engine, behind here is the exhaust manifold. It's a great place for keeping clean. Get your compressed air in there on a daily basis. Make sure that the exhaust manifold is nice and clean. Another thing to do, keep your eye on the tensioners for the fan. There's actually a small tensioner just behind the alternator here. It again has a sight gauge on it, and it's a 19mm ratchet spanner. Always inspect the fan bearing. Inspect the fan, make sure it's nice and firm, make sure the belts are good, and have a good look at the tensioner and the idler. The better you inspect that, the better it will do. Okay, I don't have a problem with putting a screwdriver on all the air fittings on the air cleaner, whether they be coming from the other side or whether they're already there. There's another area that's not well worth checking when you get into these. Up on the top here, there's an access port. It shows you underneath the back of the engine. the back of the engine pan is sloped. So if there was a leak of any oil that you couldn't see, and you look down this hole, the oil would collect along the front of the pan, and you'd be able to tell whether there was an oil leak that you hadn't been able to notice. Also, whilst you're up here, there's another tensioner behind the back of the muffler. That tensioner does the unloading, the bed auger unloader. Keep your eye on that tensioner, it too has a sight gauge. Whilst you're up in here, it's always well worth checking the looming to the GPS. It's exposed. You can see it comes off the top of the receiver, comes down the front of the box, and it actually travels along underneath the back of the grain tank. All right, you've got excellent expansion ports here above the top of the bubble up order, above the top of the clean grain, and there's another one over here that's excellent for into the top of the rotor. Okay, your air intake assembly. It's a manifold coming off the side of the radiator housing. It's a top seal, the aspirator, a bottom seal, a curved manifold into the filter with a venturi. This venturi hosing goes along the base of the back of the, actually this new one goes around the top of the radiator, and the venturi is mounted over here. That silver bulge in there, so the muffler is creating a venturi effect which is causing the air filter to suck the air through. Don't bang the filters, okay? I'm a filter cleaner. Some people let them run until they're blocked and then clean them. I like to keep the engine running as cool as possible, and I think by blowing them out on a daily basis. I tend to blow them from the outside, from the inside out, but then I'll wipe the outside off. The housing. Not many people notice this. There's a top to the housing. Okay, there's a top to the housing, and there's actually a rubber seal inside the lid. So when you go to reapply the housing, make sure that the filter is well seated into the internals, that all the clips are in the out position, and that the top writing is at the top. Then when you do insert it, make sure that all the components are going into the correct parts. If you don't, you will crush the plastics, and when you crush the plastics, it folds them over and it causes a bad seal. The aspirator. If you get a blocked filter, it's almost pays to take the aspirator out and make sure it's clean. All right. The top seal and the bottom seal and this seal here, I tend to put Celastic in. All right. They now do come from C&H with a lovely rubber seal in it, and I think the rubber seal is doing a great job. You cannot just continue to tighten the Jubilee hose clamps. If you just continue to tighten the hose clamps, you will warp the plastic. The best way to tell if they're sealing nicely is to give it a bit of a push with your hip. If it moves radically in relation to the other parts, it's not sealing well. You can see a bad one because the two parts, they creak and move apart. So take it to bits, bead of Celastic, put it back together with a bead of Celastic on it. Always a great thing to do. Good. Okay, one of the most important areas of the combine is the air intake system. There's been a variety of different incarnations of this, and I'm very happy with what Case IH have settled on now. The rotary air screen has become a rotary wand. The rotary wand is driven using basic belts off a simple hydro motor, all of them embedded inside the outer door of the rad casing. On a daily basis, really simple checks for your rad casing. Open the door, look in the base of the rad chamber. Is there residue in there? If there's residue in there, is it small or large? If it's large, where did it come from? That's a worry. If there's large stuff getting inside to the rad box, then that's going to get to your filter and it's going to block it and cause you downtime. So look at what's in there, see if you can locate the sources of it. The most important bit of the rad box in my mind is the seal. I would check the seal on a daily basis. I would check it on a daily basis because I would be looking to see whether the seal is delaminating, whether it's crushed flat, or whether it's actually fallen away from the actual main frame of the manifold of the rad housing. Whilst I'm in here, there's an internal wand which goes round and round on the rad. It's more of a vent than it is to clean the rad, but there's a set of bearings in here. Now, you wouldn't want this to go wrong. It's also powered, so for a simple reason, just check that bearing in there. Give it a wobble in both directions. It may not tell you that it's going to fail in 4 hours, but at least it's not going to fail in the next couple of hours. Check that. Also, the internal vac has got rubber seals on it. Make sure that they're in a good condition and well set. As you close the door, the vac on the outside of the rotary air screen, the rotary vac is actually powered using the separator. If you're going to turn the separator off, okay, the rotary air screen is going to stop turning around. The way I can tell it's a really good vacuum cleaner is because if you turn off the separator at the end of the row and you turn the combine round and you turn it into the chaff, it's going to stick to the fascia of the rotary screen, and if the separator's running, it keeps it spotless. So I'm very happy with the rotary vac. I think it's well driven, it's driven with belt, it's nicely run. I like the internal hydromotor that runs the internal vac. It's nice, it's simple, it's got a spring drive on it, and it's got a belt tension. Check your seal and check it all the way into the groove. If you can go all the way tight into here, there's a lot better access to the back edge of the seal now on current combines. Make sure that the seal is fluffed. Make sure the seal is not crushed and closed too much. Sometimes people think that the tighter you close the door, the better it seals. The tighter you close the door, the more you'll actually root the seal. Okay, and these rubber seals can get hot and they can get stuck closed. If they stuck closed, they're going to leave gaps. So when you get your door and you're setting it, just gently close it and feel the seal. Once you can feel the seal, and with the new catches, it's very easy to put just the right amount of pressure on the door. Don't tighten the clamps up so that they're closing it and crushing the seals.